Child laughs in an old photo. 100 years later, forensic analysts notice a face in the window. Dr. Meredith Hayes squinted at her computer screen in the dimly lit forensic imaging lab at Boston University. Rain pelted the windows as thunder rumbled in the distance, creating an appropriately ominous backdrop for her work. As the department's leading expert in historical photographic analysis, she'd examined thousands of images, but this one made her pause. The photograph, dated 1921, showed a young boy of about 6 laughing joyously on the front porch of a Victorian-style house. His hair was slightly tousled, his bow tie askew, as if he'd been playing before being briefly corralled for the picture. The photographer had captured a moment of pure childhood delight, the kind rarely seen in the formal, stiff portraits typical of that era. "Find anything interesting?" Professor Alan Chen asked, placing a fresh cup of coffee beside her keyboard. "I'm not sure," Meredith replied, zooming in on the image. "Look at the window behind the boy." The university had received a collection of historical photographs from a recently demolished house in Salem. Their task was to digitize and analyze the images for a local historical preservation project. This particular photograph had caught Meredith's attention immediately. Alan leaned closer, adjusting his glasses. "I don't see anything." "Let me enhance the contrast," Meredith said, tapping keys and adjusting sliders. The window in the background gradually became clearer. Within the glass, barely perceptible against the darkness of the interior, was what appeared to be a face, gaunt, hollow-eyed, watching the laughing child from inside the house. "Good Lord," Alan whispered. "That wasn't visible in the original print." Meredith felt a chill run down her spine as she stared at the spectral image. No, it wasn't. Modern technology reveals what the human eye couldn't see a century ago. She checked the notation on the digital file. The boy's name was Thomas Harper. The photo was taken in August 1921 at 47 Willow Street in Salem. "A laughing child," Alan murmured, "and someone watching from the shadows. I wonder what story this tells." The following morning, Meredith gathered her team of 3 graduate students in the conference room. Rain continued to fall, transforming the lab's windows into streaming rivulets that distorted the view of the campus outside. "This semester's project has taken an unexpected turn," she explained, projecting the enhanced photograph onto the screen. "What began as routine documentation for the Salem Historical Society has become something more intriguing." The students leaned forward simultaneously as she zoomed in on the window. Even with minimal enhancement, the face was unnervingly distinct. Hollow cheeks, deep-set eyes, an expression that seemed to combine longing and sadness. "Is it a double exposure?" asked Layla, a doctoral candidate specializing in early photographic techniques. "Possibly," Meredith replied, "but the positioning is too deliberate, the rest of the image too clear. Double exposures typically affect the entire negative." "Could it be staged?" suggested Marcus, the team's historical context researcher. Victorian spirit photography was popular, though most examples were obvious frauds. "That's what we need to determine," Meredith said. "I've received permission from the Historical Society to investigate further." The Harper family lived in that house from 1918 to 1926. The boy, Thomas, would have been about 6 when this was taken. James, their digital forensics specialist, enlarged the image further. "The face doesn't look like a living person. The proportions are strange, the eyes too deep. Hence our project," Meredith explained. "We're going to authenticate this photograph, establish provenance, and investigate the circumstances surrounding it. Who was the photographer? Who is the figure in the window? And most importantly, why does the child look so genuinely happy while being apparently watched by whatever that is?" She distributed folders containing their assignments. The family donated over 50 photographs, plus journals and correspondence. Salem Historical Society has provided access to property records and local newspaper archives. Let's find out what story this laughing boy and his mysterious observer have to tell. Outside, lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the room, and in that moment, the face in the window seemed to stare directly at them. 2 days later, Meredith stood before 47 Willow Street, comparing the century-old photograph with the house before her. Despite renovations over the decades, the basic structure remained recognizable. A handsome 3-story Victorian with ornate trim work and a wraparound porch. The window where the mysterious face had appeared was now part of an expanded bay window, but its position relative to the front door remained unchanged. "The current owners have lived here for 20 years, explained Patricia Wilson, the Salem Historical Society's director. a petite woman with silver hair and bright, inquisitive eyes. They've graciously agreed to let us look around, though they know nothing about the Harpers or any unusual aspects of the house's history. The front door opened, revealing a middle-aged woman with a welcoming smile. "Dr. Hayes, I'm Claire Bennett. Please come in." Inside, Meredith was struck by how the interior combined modern comforts with preserved historical elements. Original hardwood floors gleamed beneath tasteful contemporary furniture, and the fireplace mantels retained their intricate Victorian carvings. "This house has such character," Claire said as she guided them through the first floor. "When we bought it, the real estate agent mentioned something about a famous doctor who lived here in the 1920s. Dr. Edward Harper," Patricia confirmed. "A respected physician who specialized in childhood diseases. He moved here with his wife Catherine and their son Thomas in 1918. When they reached the front parlor, now a comfortable living room, Meredith immediately recognized the space behind the window from the photograph. "May I?" she asked, approaching the window. Claire nodded. The view from inside revealed the exact perspective from which the mysterious face had gazed out at the laughing boy. Meredith felt a strange dissonance, standing precisely where someone or something had stood a century ago. "Did your research turn up anything about the Harpers that might explain the anomaly in the photograph?" she asked Patricia quietly. "Only that they left Salem rather suddenly in 1926, Patricia replied. "Local newspapers mentioned Dr. Harper accepting a position at a hospital in Chicago, but the move happened with unusual haste." Claire approached with a curious expression. "What anomaly are you investigating? You mentioned it was about historical photographic techniques, but you seem particularly interested in this window." The university lab hummed with activity as Meredith's team analyzed the Harper collection. James had digitized all 57 photographs, creating high-resolution scans that revealed details invisible to the naked eye. Layla examined the original negatives, those that had survived, while Marcus pored over journals and correspondence, constructing a timeline of the Harper family's life in Salem. "Thomas appears in 23 photographs," James reported, displaying a digital collage on the main screen, always smiling, always full of energy. A typical happy child. "But the face in the window appears in 3 other images," Layla added, pointing to smaller, less obvious manifestations of the same gaunt visage in different windows of the house. "Always watching Thomas, never present when he's not in the frame." Marcus looked up from a leather-bound journal. "According to Dr. Harper's notes, Thomas was a perfectly healthy child who rarely suffered even minor illnesses, unusual for that period, especially given that Dr. Harper's practice exposed him to various contagious diseases." Meredith considered this information. Any mention of other family members? Could this be a relative staying with them? The household included Dr. Harper, his wife Catherine, Thomas, and 2 servants, Marcus replied. "No extended family is mentioned as residing with them. However, there are repeated references to Thomas's guardian angel in Catherine's personal correspondence." "Guardian angel?" Meredith asked. "She writes to her sister in April 1921. Thomas continues to speak of his guardian angel who watches over him at night. Edward dismisses it as childish imagination, but Thomas describes her in such detail. A thin woman with sad eyes who tells him stories of heaven." Layla placed a magnified image of the face beside Catherine's description. "Sad eyes, thin face. It matches." James frowned at his computer screen. "I've run the facial features through historical database recognition software. No matches to any known Harper relatives or servants. So we have a mysterious figure visible only in photographs, watching a child who speaks of a guardian angel with a similar description," Meredith summarized. "The question is, who was she, and why was she watching Thomas?" "There's something else," Marcus added quietly. "In November 1925, Catherine writes, 'The angel has warned us. We must leave this place.' The following day brought unexpected progress. While examining Dr. Harper's medical journals, Meredith discovered a separate, smaller leather notebook hidden within a false bottom of the document box, a personal diary distinct from his professional records. "Listen to this," she told her assembled team, carefully turning the brittle pages. "September 3rd, 1920. Thomas continues to speak of the woman who visits him. Catherine believes it's merely his imagination creating a surrogate for the maternal attention she cannot provide due to her persistent melancholia. I have explained to Thomas that such fancies are unbecoming for a boy of his age. Yet he insists with such conviction that I find myself unsettled. The team listened intently as Meredith continued reading. December 18, 1920. Thomas drew a picture of his friend today. The resemblance to Eleanor is unmistakable, though he could not possibly remember her. He was only an infant when we lost her. I have hidden the drawing from Catherine, as it would only deepen her grief. Eleanor? Layla interrupted. There's no Eleanor mentioned in the family records. Wait, Meredith said, flipping forward several pages. March 5th, 1921. It has been 5 years today since we lost our Eleanor. Sometimes I permit myself to imagine how she would look now, 11 years old, perhaps with Catherine's gentle eyes and my stubborn chin. Thomas asked me why I was sad, and then informed me matter-of-factly that Eleanor is not truly gone. She watches over me, Papa, he said. She wants you to know she forgives you. I cannot fathom how he could know these things. A heavy silence fell over the laboratory. Marcus was the first to speak. Eleanor Harper, he said quietly. I found birth and death certificates in the Salem Records office this morning. Born 1910, died 1916 of diphtheria, a condition Dr. Harper specialized in treating later in his career. Thomas's sister, Meredith whispered. He was just a year old when she died. The face in the window matches the age progression of a girl who would have been 11 when the photograph was taken, James completed, displaying his digital estimation on screen. The spectral image we're seeing could be Eleanor Harper, at the age she never reached in life. Salem Public Library's archive room was silent except for the occasional rustle of paper, as Meredith and Marcus examined microfilm copies of local newspapers from 1916. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, creating a sterile atmosphere that contrasted with the emotional weight of their discovery. Here it is, Marcus said finally, his finger pointing to a small obituary. Eleanor Catherine Harper, beloved daughter of Dr. Edward and Catherine Harper, passed away on March 5, 1916, after a brief illness. She was 6 years old. A brief illness, Meredith repeated. Diphtheria can kill within days if not treated promptly. Marcus continued scanning the article. It mentions Dr. Harper was away attending a medical conference in New York when Eleanor fell ill. By the time he returned, her condition had deteriorated beyond recovery. The guilt must have been overwhelming, Meredith said. A doctor who couldn't save his own daughter. Further research revealed that following Eleanor's death, Dr. Harper had abandoned his general practice to specialize exclusively in childhood diseases, particularly diphtheria. He published several papers on early intervention protocols that had saved countless children. A librarian approached with a box of materials they had requested from deep storage. These haven't been viewed in years, she explained. They're from the Salem Academy for Girls, where Eleanor Harper was a student. Inside, they found class photographs, academic records, and a small exhibition program. Eleanor Harper had been cast as an angel in the school's Christmas pageant of 1915, just months before her death. The program included a small photograph of her in costume, wearing white robes and gossamer wings. Look at her face, Meredith said, placing the program photograph beside their enhanced image from the window. The resemblance was striking. The same solemn expression, the same thoughtful eyes. She was watching over her little brother, Marcus said quietly. A guardian angel in the most literal sense. As they continued examining the academy records, they found a teacher's notation about Eleanor. Uncommonly protective of her infant brother, often speaks of her responsibility to keep him safe from harm. A promise she apparently kept, Meredith murmured. Even after death, back at the university lab, Layla had made a critical discovery while examining the Harper family's correspondence from 1925. There's a pattern to Catherine's increasingly anxious letters, she explained, arranging them chronologically on the light table. Beginning in September 1925, she mentions Thomas having nightmares about the bad doctor who wants to hurt him. The bad doctor? Meredith asked, frowning. According to Thomas, his sister, he explicitly calls her Eleanor in these later accounts, was warning him about a doctor who collects children with special gifts. Catherine writes to her sister that Thomas has become increasingly agitated, insisting they must leave Salem. James, who had been analyzing the later photographs, joined the conversation. The final photograph of Thomas at the house was taken in December 1925. The face in the window is much more distinct, almost as if it's pressing against the glass. He projected the enhanced image, and the team fell silent. The spectral face of Eleanor Harper was clearer than in any previous photograph. her expression no longer sad, but urgent, almost fearful. Marcus added another piece to the puzzle. I found a series of articles from the Boston Globe describing the arrest of Dr. Victor Pembroke in January 1926, just weeks after the Harpers left Salem. He was a colleague of Dr. Harper's at Salem Hospital, specializing in neurological research. The yellowed newspaper headline read, "Doctor arrested for unethical experiments on children." Pembroke was conducting unauthorized studies on children who claimed to have psychic abilities or supernatural experiences. Marcus continued. He believed such children possessed neurological anomalies that could be identified and potentially replicated through experimental procedures. Meredith felt a chill as the implications became clear. Thomas, who spoke with his dead sister, would have been of particular interest to Pembroke, James finished grimly. The final entry in Dr. Harper's personal journal, dated December 28, 1925, reads, "We leave for Chicago tomorrow. I can no longer dismiss Thomas's fears as imagination, nor Catherine's insistence that we are being watched. Perhaps Eleanor truly is watching over him. If so, we owe our son's safety to a daughter I failed to protect in life." The Bennett family welcomed Meredith back to 47 Willow Street with curious enthusiasm after hearing about her discoveries. "We had no idea about the history," Claire said as they sat in the parlor, the very room where Eleanor's face had appeared in the window. "It explains the feeling we sometimes get in this house." "Feeling?" Meredith asked. "A protective presence," Claire explained. "When our daughter Amy was little, she used to talk about a sad girl who watched over her. We assumed it was an imaginary friend." Claire's husband Michael nodded. "There was one night when Amy, around 6 at the time, had a high fever. We were preparing to take her to the emergency room when the bedroom door slammed shut on its own. The window flew open, sending cold air across her burning forehead. By the time we got the door open, her fever had dropped dramatically." Meredith listened, fascinated. "Has anything happened recently?" "Not since Amy grew up," Claire said. "She's at college now. It's as if the presence was only interested in protecting children." With the Bennett's permission, Meredith brought in a specialized camera that could capture variations in thermal energy and subtle light anomalies, technology used in modern paranormal research but also valuable for identifying hidden aspects of historical sites. As twilight fell, casting the parlor in dim blue light, Meredith positioned her camera facing the window. The Bennetts waited upstairs, giving her privacy for what they understandably considered unusual research. "My name is Meredith Hayes," she said aloud, feeling slightly foolish but proceeding methodically. "I've been studying the Harper family who lived here a century ago. I'm particularly interested in Eleanor Harper and how she protected her brother Thomas." The camera's digital display showed nothing unusual, just the darkening window and reflections of the room behind her. "Thomas was saved because of your warning," she continued. "Dr. Pembroke was arrested before he could harm any more children. Your brother lived a full life because of you." Suddenly, the camera's temperature sensors registered a dramatic cold spot near the window. The display showed a vague, human-shaped outline of cooler air. "Eleanor?" Meredith whispered. The camera's battery drained instantly, plunging the device into darkness, but not before capturing one final image, a young girl's face, solemn yet peaceful, fading into the gathering night. After weeks of research, Meredith's team finally located Thomas Harper's descendants. Now they sat in the comfortable living room of David Harper, Thomas's 78-year-old grandson, surrounded by family photographs spanning a century. "Grandpa Thomas lived until 1996, David explained, showing them a photograph of an elderly man with the same expressive eyes as the laughing boy from 1921. He had a remarkable life, became a pediatrician like his father, saved countless children during the polio epidemics. He always attributed his calling to his sister Eleanor. He knew about her?" Meredith asked. "Oh yes," David smiled. "Grandpa spoke of her often, even though she died when he was just a baby. He insisted she had protected him throughout his childhood. My father thought it was just a comforting story he told himself about a sister he never really knew." David retrieved a wooden box from a nearby cabinet. "After my grandfather died, we found this among his possessions. He left instructions that it should be kept sealed until after my grandmother's passing." Inside the box was a collection of small notebooks, Thomas Harper's private journals spanning decades. The earliest, dating from 1932 when he was 17, began with a dedication, "To Eleanor, my sister and guardian, whose sacrifice I will honor with my life's work." "Sacrifice?" Meredith asked. David turned to a marked page near the end of the final journal, dated 1995. My grandfather wrote this the year before he died. Now that I approach my own transition, I understand what Eleanor sacrificed. She chose to remain between worlds to protect me, postponing her own journey to ensure mine could continue. The divide between life and death is not the impermeable barrier most believe, but rather a threshold that can be traversed by those with sufficient love and determination. Eleanor traversed it for me. Soon I will cross it to finally meet her properly, no longer as the child she protected, but as the man who lived because of her vigilance. Meredith felt a profound sense of completion as the pieces aligned. The face in the window. Eleanor stayed to watch over her brother, to warn your family about the danger from Dr. Pembroke. Grandfather believed she remained until he was grown and safe, David said. After that, he said he no longer saw her, but always felt her presence at crucial moments in his life. He handed Meredith a final photograph, Thomas as a young medical student, standing proudly in his white coat. In the hospital window behind him, barely perceptible, was the faint outline of a young woman's face. 6 months later, the Salem Historical Society unveiled its new exhibition, Guardian, The Harper Family Photographs. Visitors moved slowly through the gallery, captivated by the images and story that Meredith and her team had uncovered. The centerpiece was the original 1921 photograph of Thomas laughing on the porch, displayed alongside the enhanced image revealing Eleanor's face in the window. Interactive screens showed the progression of their research, the discovery of Eleanor's identity, the threatening presence of Dr. Pembroke, the family's hasty departure, and Thomas's subsequent life dedicated to saving children from disease. What makes this exhibition unique, Meredith explained to a group of journalists, is that it's neither a simple ghost story nor an attempt to exploit tragedy. It's a documented case of how family bonds can transcend our conventional understanding of life and death. Patricia Wilson, beaming with pride at the exhibition's success, added, "The Harper collection demonstrates how historical analysis and modern technology can uncover stories that might otherwise remain hidden. Every old photograph contains mysteries waiting to be revealed." Claire and Michael Bennett had brought a special guest, their daughter Amy, now a college student studying psychology. "I always felt safe in that house," Amy told Meredith. "Now I understand why." In a quiet corner of the exhibition stood David Harper with his own grandchildren, explaining their family legacy of protection and care. "Your great-great-grandfather Thomas believed that love creates connections that cannot be broken," he told them, "not even by death." As the day ended and visitors departed, Meredith stood alone before the original photograph. In the 100 years since it was taken, the laughing boy had grown up, lived a full life, and passed away, all while carrying the knowledge that his sister had watched over him. Through careful research and modern technology, a mystery had been solved, a family story completed. Yet Meredith knew that some aspects remained beautifully unexplainable. The profound bond between siblings that had transcended the boundary between life and death, visualized as nothing more than a faint face in a window, watching over a laughing child in the sunshine of a long-ago summer day. "Thank you, Eleanor," she whispered to the photograph. "Your story will protect and inspire many more children to come."